Welcome back to another episode on my channel. As always, I'm Jay, but as you can see, I am part of an illustrious nerd set right here. First of all, we got Zakk 2K's channel alum, Devin channel alum from discussions past. We got newcomers, Ricardo and Senor Cliva, aka Quickfreeze cosplay. For this video right here, you've read the title. It's going to be the 10th anniversary retrospective of Man of Steel. But without further ado, we're going to get into it now. All right, guys. So as we know, the Man of Steel, arguably the greatest superhero ever made, first superhero ever made, we'll say, in the modern era, has had an illustrious career in cinema and animation, right? I mean, we get the 1940s and the 50s. You had Kirk Allen, George Reeves, the Fleischer cartoons. Then you're moving on to the 1970s and the 80s, which many consider the golden era because of your boy Christopher Reeve, right? Coming in, making you believe that a man can fly in four different movies. Then you had the Superboy TV show towards the tail end of that. During the 1990s and into 2000s, you had Lois and Clark, which I grew up on, which I'm rewatching right now, as a matter of fact, on what is now dubbed Max from HBO Max. You had the Superman animated series, which tailed off from, Batman and created kind of that power hour of like the New Adventures of Batman and Superman, which turned into Justice League. And then when the 2000s came out, you had Smallville, which was a smash hit and the precursor to all the CW stuff that we saw, right? And in between then and there, you had a lot of development hell because, the films that were made with Christopher Reeve didn't end the best. And they were trying to develop so many things going on. You had stuff like Superman Lives, which was supposed to be done by Tim Burton, which was famously shown in the documentary The Death of Superman Lives, which I still have yet to see. I know it's a grave sin. I need to see it. Rest in peace, John Schnepp. But that you had Superman Flyby, you had a slew of people coming in and out. Nicolas Cage was going to be the Superman, our Man of Steel, which would have been insane in my opinion. You would have had a few other people, of course. Shoot, what's his face? Wasn't Matt Bomber one of the people? And then there was this other guy. His name was Henry Cavill, I think. But we'll talk about him at another time. And then the thing that got me was they were actually thinking of doing a Justice League film by George Miller, like during the time of like I think between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises or something like that, or right after that, like a parallel kind of running, as it were, a Justice League movie with a different Batman aside from Christian Bale, which I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm surprised we didn't get that. But you know, through all these different things that happen, we did end up getting a follow up to the Donnerverse in Bryan Singer's Superman Returns. Bryan Singer had the bright idea to leave the wildly successful and great X Men franchise to come over and make a love letter to Richard Donner's Superman.
Uh, no, it's not very good. I mean, in the prism of a romance movie, it's okay, but that's not what anyone wanted in a Superman movie at that time. I didn't want that. I don't know about you guys.
For me, it was a movie that we grew up on the 90s Superman, the Adventures of Superman. We grew up obviously like seeing Superman, his power sets, video games, TV shows, and then going to like Superman Returns. And it's like the first time we actually get our own 2000 Superman. You're expecting, action, great CGI, great villains. And some people who haven't seen like the older Superman movies with Christopher Reeves are probably going to be turned off by it.
Yep.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I know that I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought Brandon Routh I thought he fit the part, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the whole entire film, it just didn't do it for me at all.
Yeah, he fit the part, but he was just trying to be Christopher Reeve. He wasn't actually. He didn't really do anything to make the part his. But I remember being super excited for it because it was at a time that comic book movies were kind of starting to become more of a norm, more of like the zeitgeist, I guess. And I remember this being the first Superman movie coming out while I was alive and being pretty excited to see what they could do at this point with technology, and it did really let me down.
I actually like Superman Returns quite a bit because like I'll say it right now, like Superman the movie with Christopher Reeves, the first one, is my all-time favorite movie of like all time. Like it's my favorite. I literally have like 34 copies of this movie in my house. And this when Superman Returns comes out, I'll agree with you. It's not as great as the original Christopher Reeves movies, one and two. But like you it sounds like you guys kind of like are putting it down, like saying, um, like he's not making the part his own. I don't think that was the point. I think he was trying to be Christopher Reeves. Like it was a continuation of those films and the style that I'm sorry, who's the director again?
Brian Singer.
Brian Singer. Yeah. Like that was what he was trying to do. He was trying to capture those Richard Donner movies. He wasn't trying to make anything new. He was not trying to do his own thing. He was trying to copy Richard Donner. He was trying to copy Christopher Reeve. So if you look at it that way, I think it's a great film.
So they did definitely succeed in replicating every element of Christopher Reeve, except for that it wasn't Christopher Reeve.
Right.
But you also want to progress the character throughout that movie. You know what I mean? So for me, it didn't really do that. At least that's what I would want in my character or the main character throughout the movie. I think through, as a love letter, though, it was definitely very successful in that, element of it.
Superman Returns was definitely one of the most highly anticipated movies at the time when I was like going online to the website and checking out updates and stuff like that. So, I mean, I didn't grow up watching the Christopher Reeve movies until after Superman the animated series, so I didn't have a familiarity until later on. But over time, I think I really appreciated the movie for what it was. I mean, it's not perfect, but the standout for me was definitely Brandon Routh's performance as Superman. I mean, he was definitely given the tools of the trade, what he was offered, and the cards he was dealt with, he did his job. So I thought he was pretty good. But overall, I mean, it's definitely grown on me over the years, and I think it's probably one of the bottom tier Superman movies. But I definitely go back once in a great while and check it out, and definitely see what's different.
Brian Singer was really trying to recapture that magic, that tone of the Donner movies, and putting it on like with a new aesthetic and spin, which at times kind of clashed with me though. Brandon Routh does a great job. Obviously, he's trying to be in line with Christopher Reeve's, Superman. Makes perfect sense, and I'm actually glad though because I mean he had to do that. That's what he had to work with, right? And he was still pulling off a great Superman for that version. And I love the fact that he got his due in the Kingdom Come version that he was, or the pseudo Kingdom Come version in the Crisis series.
I love that.
That was his best. Like he knew what Superman was. He knew what the mindset was. He was great, and you could tell he was chomping at the bit. He's like, man, if I ever had a chance to do it, I would do it. I would do it like, this is how I would play it. And it would, and he did, he delivered. And the thing is it sucks that it took so long to happen. And you hate to see something like that with all that effort. Cause the thing is like, my mindset has changed over the years of like, okay, this movie just sucks. No one ever sets out to make a bad movie. And I love some movies that suck. I can admit that, some movies that are guilty pleasures, but no one ever sets out to make a bad movie unless you're probably Tommy Wiseau, which even then he's probably lying about him trying to make a bad comedy movie, aka The Room. But sorry, did I say the quiet part out loud? But I don't know. But I mean, just I think what the problem for me was the rehashing, because we hadn't seen a Superman movie since Superman 4, which it wasn't terrible looking back at least for me as a fan, because he was going toe to toe with someone who, guys, I'm sure you'll agree with me. The thing I want to see is in the Superman movie, I want to see him go toe to toe with people, whether it's Kryptonians, whether it's a clone of himself, whatever it is. And I wish that they would have done an extended version of the Superman 4 cut with like the Bizarro that they cut out completely out of the movie, but they didn't do that. But as far as this goes, what really didn't work for me was the fact that we're focusing on Superman and showcasing he got shot in the eyeball. That was a great shot. That was a great shot. It bounced
I did
off
love
his eye.
that.
That slow motion.
Yeah, I like that part a lot.
And for the time, that was pretty
Yeah, it was
cutting edge
definitely great.
CGI.
And
too.
when he's
It looked
flying,
good at the time.
the speed,
Right.
the effects were like on point. Him standing in space with this cape floating, and then all of a sudden, like all that stuff, like that's cool. Bringing back Jor-El, bringing back Marlon Brando's Jor-El, which was sorely missed. And when you watch the Donner cut and see all those clips, I'm like, you Salkinds, you were idiots. You should have just let them do what they needed to do, because you would have had another. You knew you were going to have another box office blockbuster on your hands, but you just didn't want to deal with Donner and his sensibilities. Kevin Spacey as a Gene Hackman version of Lex Luthor, I think that works. I think that makes sense. I don't like
think he was doing a Gene Hackman version.
Well, I could see them being the same kind of personality. Basically, I think the trajectory matches if you look at how Kevin Spacey played him, because he's still just as eccentric, he's still just as diabolical, and unfortunately, he's still on that real estate scheme, which was something that I didn't like them kind of focusing on. Again,
You could see his eccentric side in that. Remember the villainous monologue where he's screaming at the what does he say? Wrong. He's just screaming wrong at the guy.
Like, come on, wrong. Yeah.
You can definitely feel that Gene Hackman energy there.
Exactly, and just the way that, and like the intro with the original Lois Lane, the older woman that he basically swindles, right, has her sign at the beginning. That's a total. I feel like that's a total Gene Hackman like Luthor move, or that Lex Luthor would do that if he had gotten out of prison, had no money. He would totally sink to those levels of depravity. And I love I thought that it started off funny when that happened, because he takes off his wig and he gives it to the little girl. He's like, you can keep that, everything else is mine. And then she just screams her head off. I'm like, oh my god, this is great. But like, as a whole, I wanted to see that toe to toe. I wanted to see that battle, which the Superman Returns video game kind of gave you a little bit of that. Like he gets taken and sucked in by Mongol on Warworld and stuff. And stuff like that would have been cool to kind of see encapsulated or seen. For the longest time, even Kevin Smith was writing some treatments for and some things for it too when they were trying to get it off the ground. He wanted to bring in Brainiac and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, like that would have been amazing, right?
So that kind of led to the disappointment a little bit, right? Like you get to the climax and it's him lifting a giant rock. Like cool, yeah. But like you had the opportunity at this point, you know, you can give us Metallo, you can give us Hank Henshaw as Cyborg Superman, that you can pick out more stuff and spread out the mythology of the character as well. It's kind of the same argument of we keep getting Lex Luthor, or we keep getting the Joker, or we keep getting XYZ as far as our villains. When there's so many different villains to choose from. Like it's insane. Superman has a really overlooked villain catalog. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of comic book films don't do, is they don't go deep enough, because for every time we get a Batman movie, every 2 movies, it's going to be the Joker that's his villain or whatever it is. It's like they're always going for the arch nemesis. It's like, okay, unless you're recontextualizing or retelling or whatever it is, like, and giving a new spin, I don't see a point in bringing him back unless he's like kind of like a new edge or a contemporary version of something, which again, it's a case-by-case scenario. It's hard to do, you know, and we can kind of talk to each other until we're blue in the face about it, but at the end of the day, it's like it's a fine balance of like rehashing and then making new stuff or giving new stuff is what I would say. One thing that's not forgivable is Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane, though. I'm sorry, she's not a good Lois Lane.
Oh no, I think she was much better than Margot Kidder.
Okay. On the eyes, she was much better than Margot Kidder.
No,
Margot Kidder never did. I don't know.
I bought that Margot Kidder was just a badass woman that didn't take shit.
Listen, the best Lois Lane for me. Okay, we're gonna get to the baser instincts here. The best looking one was Terry Hatcher. Can we agree on that?
Terry Hatcher, easy.
Terry Hatcher,
yeah,
right.
Terry
Hatcher. Definitely had the appeal now.
And I will make a case as we progress in this discussion.
I gotta go Erica Durance.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's Smallville, right? Yeah.
Smallville. Yeah.
You know what? I didn't watch Smallville consistently. I stopped way before she came in the picture. So that's my bad. So I might kind of
like the newest Lois Lane in Lois and Superman.
She's great too.
Yeah, she's great. She's very good.
That show actually as a whole is amazing.
She looks like the one from the animated
one. Right, she does. She looks like she's an amalgamation of all the traditional ones, like Margot Kidder, the animated, like you know, she's got all those sensibilities. And again, I got to kind of go back and look at Superman and Lois, because I have been sleeping on Superman and Lois, and I know Michael Cudlitz was just cast as Lex Luthor not too long ago too. Did he start showing yet? or
No, not yet.
No, not yet. He's gotten teased a couple times.
I'm
but
waiting for that because I think I would have rather had him come in than John Cryer as Lex Luthor. Although John Cryer being Lex Luthor wasn't too bad. It was pretty decent, and the guy's come a long way as far as acting and everything like that. So
He was in Superman 4.
Exactly my point.
Yeah,
that's ironic. Yeah.
Right. Was it
He played Lex's
Lenny?
nephew, right?
Yeah, Lenny.
Yeah, he was Lenny Luthor. Yeah.
You're just an experiment, freako. What's that? Oh no.
I'm an experiment. I'm freako.
That is one thing about DC, especially in the Superman franchise, is they take past actors and reuse them for current films or adaptations. So yeah, you're gonna see John Cryer as Lenny Luthor and then Lex Luthor. It's amazing how they do that.
I mean, even in the movie we're about to talk about today, like I remember seeing a bunch of people be like, "You're in Smallville. You're in this.
Yeah.
You're in that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the sake of moving on, fellas, I think we've made our point that Superman Returns, although delivering on some aspects, could have been better, could have been worse, could have been better, and despite much fanfare, it didn't make the box office presence that it should have. It only made maybe $100 million more than its budget, which, as we know, you got to at least make double and a half to be considered a success or even to have a chance at a sequel or anything. Tone, story, actors consistent, very much a homage to the days of old with the golden era, Christopher Reeve. But Man of Steel.
It's going to change the world.
7 years after the lukewarm reception to Superman Returns, and after the Dark Knight trilogy came to a close, after the expanded universe didn't get jump-started with Ryan Reynolds as Green Lantern, it was announced that Superman would be having his own film, and he would come back to the silver screen in Man of Steel. It was released in June 2013 during the character's 75th anniversary, and it was produced by Christopher Nolan and written by David S. Goyer, the super team behind Batman Begins and the Dark Knight trilogy in capacities, and obviously then we had Zack Snyder, who we knew had some goodwill in the comic kind of community. 300, Watchmen, and then if we're turning it around to another thing he did the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and that was also written by James Gunn, funny enough. And the whole thing of it is that the movie, it feels like it's a bold retelling of Superman's origin, and it's set in contemporary times. We're bringing him to now. And the premise of it is that Clark is trying to discover his alien heritage, and as a result of that, an alien invasion happens, and it's up to him to claim his birthright as Kal-El, but also to stop the invasion, to stop the menace of General Zod and his Kryptonian hordes, or his soldiers and everything, who are, again, recently freed from the Phantom Zone. This sounds familiar, we know, because it's the premise of Superman 2, but we've got a couple, maybe like a little bit more of a fleet type of thing going on. So that already kind of is like that little bit of difference and everything like that. And but before we get into the casting, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I had rewatched the trailer for Superman, and that kind of reawoken my memories. It's like I'm sitting there in the theater. I forget which movie. It could have been for like some random movie. Maybe it was a Marvel movie. The trailer comes on and it's like this operatic, like music, and then you're just seeing like this kid running around in the field. It's like all blurred. It's got beautiful bokeh. You're seeing like this swing set and the butterfly on it, and then you're seeing this kid running around with the dog, and then he's got a red towel on his neck. I'm like, no. And it said next summer, and blah 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 blah, and then it said Man of Steel, and I'm like, holy shit! Did you guys have something similar?
Yeah, I mean, I was really looking forward to this movie. I loved the Marvel stuff we had up to that point. I was ready for DC to get into the game, and I always leaned towards DC, even when in my reading and everything. So I was really excited for this, and really thought they would go on like head to head with Marvel finally. Not that you have to make a choice. I love all of it.
I could be wrong, but maybe I'm not too sure if the first trailer came out during when The Dark Knight Rises came out, because I know a bunch of me and my friends all went to go see The Dark Knight Rises in theater, So, and it came out in 2012, I think. So maybe that's when the preview came out. I could be wrong about that. But when I did see the preview for it, and like you said, seeing the cape, and the boy having it, around his neck, and just like the golden hour, obviously the footage and everything, you see like, oh shit, it's actually going to be like a Superman movie, because we had Batman Begins, then we had the Dark Knight, and then obviously Dark Knight Rises came out. So it's like, oh well, they're actually going to be doing an actual like Superman movie that we want to see, that's action packed, that's obviously up to date, and something that we want to see. And then obviously too, I think the thing that got me out of my seat was not even just seeing the kid with the cape, but was towards the end of the trailer. What I remember was when you see Superman, like afar. I think it was like a far,
like a sonic boom, right? He was like
sonic boom. Yeah, with the sonic boom, he's just going up.
Yes,
he just like, you hear that, and it's like, oh, like they're really going for it.
Yeah,
and I think for me, that's when I was like, oh, I gotta see this movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right.
I honestly can't say I remember seeing the trailer at all. Like,
yeah.
If I remember correctly, the boy was jumping through the cornfield, not wearing a cape.
So that's Superman Returns. That one was definitely in Superman Returns.
Then I don't remember at all. Then
yeah.
So.
Oh, gotcha.
Definitely that trailer got me hyped. But I don't know if you guys saw the leaked Comic-Con trailer that came out.
I don't think I saw it at the time.
Was that the one where it showed him with the Jor-El narration in the background, where he's in the snow and he does his first flight?
Yeah,
I do remember that one as well.
Yep.
That's actually the first one I think I saw.
Yeah, I remember when that trailer first came out, and people were like going crazy over it, and that trailer had me in tears, like literally in tears. And I'm just like, yeah. I always thought Superman was a really, really interesting character growing up, and being able to see a new take on it, to have an emotional attachment to it, that just really set me off. And then seeing that Caesar trailer of him breaking the sound barrier and the ash shield coming on screen, I was really prepared to see the next generation of this character. So that was really exciting.
All right, guys. So moving forward, this film, lovely cast, amazing cast, the best cast ever, as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, did I lay it on thick enough?
That's debatable, man.
Can you tell I love this movie, though, Cliva? Can you tell that I'm biased? That's why I want
very
folks, that's why I want folks to balance the bias out.
He's very
bring me back
passionate.
down to earth. Right off the bat, Russell Crowe, Jor-El, good pick.
I think it's a great pick.
I thought he was great.
Pick. Excellent pick, I believe.
I think so. I definitely brings the gravitas. I keep on thinking of Maximus Decimus Meridius. Are you not entertained? Is this not what you are here for?
It brought a level of epicness to that whole Krypton segment, you know?
Exactly. And from that casting in and of itself, I'm like, and seeing all the other actors, that's what I was really getting hyped up to, is that they're taking it to epic proportions. Moving forward, I believe her name, and forgive me if I butcher it, Ayelet Zura Lara. She played Lara L. Michael Shannon as General Zod.
I thought incredible.
Oh, that's god tier casting.
Yeah, dude is crazy.
Yeah,
I appreciate commitment in any form, and he just completely commits to being evil.
Yes,
and to being Zod. It's so good.
Yes.
I mean, he was a good modern Zod. Yeah, like you could tell he's a general.
Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent. This is pre Yellowstone Kevin Costner too, and even like he's a great actor, like Oscar worthy actor, Oscar winning. He's won Oscars, right? I can't remember.
Oscar?
Yeah, he won an Oscar.
He won for Dancing with Wolves, didn't he?
Dancing with Wolves,
yeah, he did.
Uber filmmaker, great pick as Jonathan Kent. He's got that Midwestern, those values. He brings that air of legitimacy to that. And then I thought Diane Lane was a great pick as Superman's mom too.
Agreed.
She was great. Yeah,
Martha. Okay, on the count of three.
That's next movie. No, next movie.
Martha.
Why did you say that name?
Movie. When we do the next movie.
Why did you say that name? Amy Adams as Lois Lane. And oh my God, she's a redhead.
I liked her.
I think she's a great actress, but for some reason, I don't know why, I just feel like they could have gotten someone better to play.
It's because she's a ginger. Just say it, Ricardo. It's because she's a ginger.
I don't know.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I don't think it's that. I just feel like, I don't know. She to me, she doesn't feel like Lois.
So,
Interesting.
I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong about this, and maybe it's just me, or maybe it could be she's a redhead. Maybe that's what it could be too, as well.
Well, and that's the thing that threw me for a loop, right? But Zach, what you were gonna
I
say?
think she's an amazing actress. I just feel like you know, for being in a superhero movie, I feel like she just didn't fit for me.
Gotcha.
Maybe because
Okay.
she's maybe too big of an actress at the time. I don't
So
know.
you're seeing Amy Adams and not Lois Lane, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zach.
For me, it was I was more in the middle on her. I think she did bring that level of badass you need to be Lois Lane. You're a general's daughter, and she does bring that. She's really headstrong. She's very determined. But a really big aspect for Lois Lane, and something that I don't buy in any of the Snyder movies, is the Lois Lane and Clark Kent relationship. I don't really like their chemistry together. It doesn't really hit me as these two characters are meant to be together, and they're the same as Mickey and Minnie. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get that feeling.
I think for me personally, and I can see what you're saying, and I think that's just because of the rushness of it. But in real life, stranger things have happened. You go through a life and death situation. Bonding like that can happen and has happened, but I totally understand what you're saying. It doesn't seem believable.
You're right. Stockholm syndrome is definitely a thing. It's not this thing, but it's a thing.
But like for me, I think the only romance I ever bought with Lois and Clark was actually Lois and Clark. Terry Hatcher and Dean Cain. I totally bought their romance. It was so developed. It was such a touch like thing for me personally.
No, man, Margot Kidder and Christopher
Margot
Reeve,
Kidder just wanted to get into his underpants.
That's love. What's
that is love.
I mean,
what color
she wanted to
underwear am
skip
I
steps,
wearing?
so
Do you like pink?
I like pink very much.
I like pink very much, Lois.
you got straight to the point.
Oh, he got straight to the point in number 2. All right. Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I actually like Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White. I thought he did a great job. He had that gravitas as Perry White, and for me, I wouldn't say he's like a person that you would forget about, but like I feel like I wouldn't say anyone could play Perry White, but like if you're gonna get somebody to play Perry White, I feel like Lawrence Fishburne is a good pick.
Yeah, like today's Perry White totally nailed it. And the thing is that like there's all those small connections between Superman and the Matrix, though. You ever think about that? Like even some of the imagery in this too kind of mirrors the Matrix in certain aspects. And I mean, not for nothing, but in the Matrix Reloaded, he's like, "Oh, he's doing his Superman thing or whatever." That's what like one of their handlers said, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's true. That's true."
I mean, he was flying around the world, so that's pretty Superman-like.
Exactly.
Okay. I thought he was good. I mean, I thought he was good. He definitely seemed like a guy that could command a press room in the modern era. He had that commanding presence about him.
Oh yeah.
But Perry White, I think he didn't really have much to do in the movie. I thought we could have seen him do a little more, or at least have more scenes in the Daily Planet. Because to me, that's a big part of Superman. But overall, Lawrence Fishburne was a good choice. Absolutely.
Yep. That's the thing, and I don't want to take too much time about this. And that's the thing where like we never really got quote unquote Man of Steel like 2. And I feel like maybe if they did do that, they probably would expand it more on the Daily Planet. Even though Batman versus Superman is technically kind of like a sequel, but not really.
We're talking about I'm a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter.
Then act like it.
Henry Cavill as Clark Kent, Kal-El, and Superman. Perfect casting. I think it was a great casting for a modern Superman, in my opinion.
I love Christopher Reeve, but I thought he was the perfect cast Superman for the modern era. He's right up there with Christopher Reeve for me. Christopher Reeve, he'll always hold a special place in my heart. But man, just you look at him and you see Superman ripped from the panels of the comics, and especially in the tone that they were going with, the color of his suit more recently, that's we're never going to see. That could have been really bright future ahead. But he did a really good job in this one, I thought.
Yeah.
For me, I thought he was a perfect casting. I thought he looked like a modern day Superman. And for some reason the movie's escaping me, but I saw it in theaters. It wasn't like with all the gods and stuff.
Eagle.
That's on the tip of my tongue right
Eagle?
now. No, he was Perseus, right?
Immortals.
The Immortals. Yep,
So,
exactly.
okay, so I saw him in
That's what it was.
Immortals. I didn't know who Henry Cavill was.
Right.
But I was like, oh yeah, it's like that's the guy from Immortals. Like, yeah, oh yeah, he could definitely play Superman. He looks like him. He has a strong jaw. But I saw his acting skills. I was like, oh, he can actually act too as well. He's not just like a guy that has the looks and that's it. So when I saw him when he was casted as Superman, I was like, this guy's a perfect fit. He looks obviously like Clark Kent, and obviously he looks just like Superman. And I thought, this is probably going to be a great movie because he has the acting chops to be a leading man too as well. So I thought it was a perfect casting.
The first time I saw him was in The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes,
He was
as
the son of Edmond Dantes.
Yeah.
And that's where I will always remember him from.
Look wise, he made a great Superman. Like he looks like Superman, a modern Superman. But like acting wise, I don't think so. Like I'm very old school. Like when I think of Superman, like I think of like the strong, powerful guy. You have that with Henry Cavill.
Yep.
But like you gotta understand Superman is two men. He's Superman and Clark Kent.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really get like a Clark Kent in this movie. Like, where was the bumbling? Where was the misdirection? Where was the whole parade like that? Like, we didn't get that. We just got the strong, silent, gruff, mean, like I'm tortured soul. If you want that, great. But like, I like more of a classic bumbling Clark Kent who then becomes this god of a person when he needs to be.
I think obviously we've gotten that so many times that they wanted to do something different. They wanted to give us like, him being like a god and obviously him being gruff and scruff and just like being able, powerful and everything like that. And I think that's something a lot of the fans wanted. And I understand where Clive is coming from. Like, I mean, that's Superman I grew up on. I watched the old Superman cartoons when I was a kid because my dad grew up like in the 50s and 60s, and I used to watch that stuff all the time. And for me, like I think this movie was more about Clark finding himself, obviously his alien heritage, but also too like, where am I? Because he's not a human being, but he is in a sense of like, especially with how throughout the movie, like him leaving his home and being a fisherman and being working in a bar, he was trying to find himself. So like he didn't know who he should be. And I don't think it was more focused on the bumbling, stumbling guy, because I think that's more of him being like in the Daily Planet situation. But for me, I just thought like where they went with it was something different and something that a lot of people were kind of clamoring for.
With this movie, it's clearly a progression of where this character is going to, in the way I took it, right? So I'm willing to give it that wiggle room in the sense of how the Spider-Man, the Homecoming trilogy is really a trilogy as an origin story as opposed to just one movie being the origin story. So that's kind of where I was going with the progression of Clark in this. Is just like you said, he's very much just a drifter going from town to town doing job to job. He doesn't really even know what he wants Clark Kent to be. He doesn't even know who he really is yet. He hasn't had the moment where he discovers his his Fortress of Solitude, if you will, right? So he's still figuring out both worlds in this movie. As the movie progresses, even when he's in the suit, he's not Superman really yet. He's still figuring out what that is, and he's still figuring out what Clark Kent is. So he's just trying to constantly, battle with discovery of what he wants to be.
Please, it is a matter of honor.
So I think honestly, the bumbling Clark Kent was more of the Christopher Reeve take and some of the runs in the comics. That's really was more because if you look at the Fleischer cartoons, he's kind of like got his wide brim hat. He's looking around. He's not trying to trip over a stumble or make an ass out of himself necessarily. And some iterations do that. But I tell you what, the first iteration that I saw live action wise to not do that was in Lois and Clark. He wasn't technically bumbling. He was, a regular guy, kind of like clean cut, straight edge, straight arrow, whatever. He wasn't as bumbly, but I can still see what you're saying. If you're old school like that Christopher Reeve image, you're going to be jarred by this because we don't get a lot of that typical Clark Kent because we don't get him working at the planet. That doesn't happen until the very end. But not to tease, but like tease what we're going to have the discussion of. The reason why I love this movie so much is because it brought Superman contemporary wise for me, and people like me recognize that it made Superman human. Superman has always been the bumbling idiot into the god that's invincible. But I tell you what, the thing about this movie that really gets me every time, even on rewatching, is those human moments, the flashbacks when he's going to consult a priest about whether or not he should give himself up, because he knows that there's a higher power in his mindset. Like, I'm all power, I have all this power, but I'm not all powerful. I'm not like, I don't look at myself as a god or whatever. I know it doesn't, it might not make sense. I'm kind of rambling right now, but that's kind of where I think, like, Ricardo, you, me, and Zakk and Devin, I think we enjoy this because we're finally seeing a Superman that maybe he can't bleed, but he can bleed metaphorically. Like, he actually has a heart and feeling. Like, he's not always this is a job for Superman. Like, he's not always up. He does have human emotions and stuff. And some might say it's too dramatic. Some might say it's not their Superman. But I think that that's something that really, lends itself to that the legitimacy. And it kind of ties into something I wanted to say is, like, whenever we're rebooting, like doing a hard reboot or whatever, I personally think that retelling origin stories, showing Batman's parents getting killed, showing Superman crash to Earth and doing something like that, showing Uncle Ben die, I think that depending on the way that we're recontextualizing, I personally think we should show it in this darker world. Like, you're not going to tell me that the 89 Batman, the way that his parents were killed, which was just a passing over, isn't as brutal as BVS, because it's a more brutal universe. And I can see why they should recontextualize and show that. Like, that's as an example.
Those pivotal moments to the character will reflect to you what the tone is going to be for their interpretation of that character. So I'm actually with you in that sense. Like, I know we've seen Martha and Thomas die 1,000 times, but each time it was different and did have something to say about what you're getting with the rest of the tone of the rest of the film or series, really.
Oh, I was going to talk more about just the fact that how we have a Superman movie, obviously coming off of the whole Batman, the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises trilogy, having those three movies. And in those movies, I know Christopher Nolan, wrote them and he filmed them. He made those movies more grounded and felt more lifelike and realistic. And obviously Superman, it's not realistic. But for me, in my opinion, like, I felt like Man of Steel was on the same trajectory of that, of feeling more grounded and going back to the, him being bumbly and stumbly. And I understand that. I think that works for those movies back then, but like for a movie that's for like a modern age movie that would connect with, obviously us, at the, being probably in our early 20s and stuff like that, and stuff that we've seen, I think it being more grounded, more life, like it wouldn't make sense to have that in those movies. And then obviously too, going with the origin story, I think we needed this, especially with, seeing Krypton basically on the verge of blowing up. And as far as I know, I've never seen, especially in the live action, from what I remember, I don't ever remember seeing Krypton ever in a movie. And obviously having like Zack Snyder's take on Krypton and seeing how Krypton is, it's like an actual world. And a lot of people forget this too. And it's not our fault, but like Superman he's actually an alien. He's not a human being. And people seem to forget that a lot. And seeing that world and seeing, obviously like probably like, what was it, like maybe the first 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of the movie?
I think
like
15, 20 minutes. I think so.
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes of seeing that movie is like, you got to realize that he is an alien, and I think that was really important for the movie.
Yeah, we've only ever seen the brief Donner take before of that one room in Krypton, really.
I think the origin was fine. I just thought it was kind of weird that like Superman was a natural birth. Like, it was just like Krypton was like they artificially make their own citizens, and he was just the first natural birth. I thought that was kind of weird, but no, I think origin was fine.
Okay, Dev.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice modern take on Krypton, especially like with the agriculture and all stuff like that. We never got to see that before. I just think that when you retell a movie of this big of scope, you definitely got to have more detail, more story to get the audience engaged, because we haven't seen this before. So I really do think if you have that going for it, you definitely are on the right side of filmmaking and storytelling, and I thought that was done really well. So
Well
it
said.
definitely is one of the most important aspects, especially if you're retooling stuff and you're reimagining these superheroes for the modern generation. You definitely want to have your own taste, your own feel for it, because not all of it's going to be the same. It's always going to be different.
Well said. Well said, 100%. And Clive, I think actually John Byrne's run is what established that natural birth wasn't really a thing too. Zach, you might be able to back me up on this. I'm not sure, but they did. He was the first natural birth in centuries or decades,
yeah.
I think, right? And I don't know. They went top heavy with the whole Last Son of Krypton, which I ate it up. I was all here for what they do later on, but we'll get to that definitely. All right, folks. Now for the fun stuff. Let's just go straight into the events of the movie now. And we're starting with the opening on Krypton, the coup, the destruction, Kal-El's birth, first natural birth in ages, like we were saying. And then we jump into his birth and we just see all of Krypton. It's kind of green. There's no crystals. First of all, oh my God, there's no crystals in a Superman anything. In the longest time, it was all about the crystals. It was all about the green crystal. It was all about the clear crystals. It was all I was glad to see the crystals go. I'm not gonna lie.
They do a really good job immediately differentiating the aesthetic from what we've known as Superman, and that I think was their plan. So they did succeed in that. I thought it was really cool to see Krypton for that long. I liked being able to kind of get lost in that the coup, everything that was going on at that intro. I didn't like some of the aesthetic choices, but overall, I thought it was really cool looking.
Which aesthetics didn't you like?
The penis ships that they fly up.
Oh, you got ahead of me, man. No, I know a lot of stuff was phallic in this. Even Superman's. I was about to say Spider-Man. Even his ship looks like sperm. I'm sorry, it just does, guys. It looks like a sperm.
Yeah, it looks, as much as I love, again, the Donner stuff, it looks a lot better than a weird crystal just flying through space. It doesn't really seem like that would
it
be
looks
a
more
ship,
alien,
you know?
though, right? Like aliens are all kind of like but it definitely does look like modern alien. I don't know, but a lot of people could talk about all the Freudian things that are in this film for sure, and definitely a little bit like, huh?
Yeah, it was a weird choice.
Why are the ships shaped like that? Like, the wildlife was interesting. Like I said, they have kind of a cocoon motif. They kind of look like all like their buildings and their structures are kind of like honeybee structures, or like, I don't know, like, like, I don't know, is that just me, guys? Did you notice that too?
Yeah, I kind of see that.
Yeah. And I mean, and then like Jor-El riding a beast that was like a dragonfly. I thought that was kind of like,
that. Well, he had his own very special dragonfly. Remember, he called its name, and then it comes to him like that. They have a close connection.
I don't know.
So I guess everyone in this Krypton has a dragon flying.
It was like Avatar before Avatar.
I was just gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, it's the Banshees, right?
Connection,
right?
Yeah.
Council meeting. Not Zod. Jor-El is imploring them, and he's like, I told you harvesting this was going to do this. What did you expect us to do, Jor-El? Did you just expect us not to drill for more oil? I'm just kidding. But like literally, that's what it is. It's like, and they're all there. They're all opulent too. They have these nice decorative things, and it's like, you sons of bitches. This guy is bred to be a scientist, and you literally did not listen to him being a scientist. Like, how does that make sense in your society where you breed people specifically for certain tasks? Like, that makes zero sense. Zod comes in all bombastic, like,
this council has been disbanded.
On whose authority?
Mine.
Sets the tone right off the bat. And then he's trying to reason with Jor-El. He's like, join me, Jor-El. We could reshape. We can save our race and the degenerative bloodlines.
I did make a note of that. I do think Zod and Jor-El's relationship, and they had really good dialogue in their debate too. But their relationship of being estranged once friends in this was, I thought, a really good element. I can't remember who started the run in the comics where they do that too. But Jor-El and Zod in the comics have had relationship in the past throughout the history of these characters. So. Yep. I did like that they made that a pretty prominent element of their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I really like this as an introduction because it lets you know immediately what's going on. It catches you up with Krypton, and then you see Zod being Zod right away.
Zod obviously detains Jor-El. He escapes because somehow the scientist knows how to fight, even though he's been bred to be a scientist. So I
really
thought that,
well too.
and I think that there's some type of genetic hacking. That's in my head canon. He hacked his own genetics or his own mind to be able to do that stuff. Steals the codex, infuses the codex with all of the DNA for all of the Kryptonians inside of his one son, which again, last son of Krypton. We're going to lay into that title a lot more in this. We're going to lean into it. So they're about to send him out. Zod comes through, kills Jor-El. I don't know why, but it's just Zod killing Jor-El kind of just made the weight of it like. And then as they're fighting, he looks up and sees the ship do its thing, and he gets stabbed, and then the music drops, and it's like he didn't even get a chance to like console his wife and stuff, which that made it 10 times sadder when his wife died because his wife was alone and the planet just basically exploded and everything.
The only problem I really had with that beginning portion was I don't think the CGI really looks too good today. It didn't really hold well the 10 years.
No,
and there's a lot. I didn't think so. At least in the first part where it's all CG.
Gotcha.
Okay. Where he's surrounded by the entire world of it being CG. This is my first time too. I was seeing it in UHD format, so maybe it was a little bit of that, but it didn't look very good, or at least it wasn't changed to that format very well.
I thought it looked pretty good. But yeah, so that was it. We got Krypton getting wiped out and stuff. Anything else that any of you other guys noticed about it that you liked about it, or?
I just want to go back to like the whole Zod and like Jor-El relationship, and I think Zod talks about it later in the movie how he said like he felt horrible, like it still haunts him for basically killing Jor-El, because I mean the thing about Zod is that he's a bad guy and everything like that, but his purpose was to save Krypton. He wants to save Kryptonians.
The best villains are the heroes of their own story.
Exactly. And like for him, like it was sad, but for him, he had to kill. I mean, well, obviously he had to, but his mission was to save his people, and Zod, and Jor-El was basically in the way. So I mean, he had to do what he had to do.
It's almost like a Magneto Xavier type of thing. They were friends. They had that one singular vision, and then their paths diverged so drastically.
Yeah, I just thought that that relationship definitely add more depth, especially when again going back to being introduced to something that's new and that's never been done before. It definitely contextualizes things for the audience and for the fans and stuff like that. And I thought it was done really well. So it definitely also adds to the friction. Like when the fights go on later on within the third act, you really can tell that it's definitely conflicting in terms of how the ideologies kind of clash and stuff like that. So I thought that really just leads to just really, really pleasing to the eye visually and then story wise too. So I thought that was done really well.
Yeah, I thought the relationship was very believable. You could tell that they were friends. A lot better than the Terrence Stamp and Marlon Brando, those actors. But yeah, that a modern interpretation of these characters, their friendship, yeah, it was very believable. The only thing I don't really understand is why Zod had to yell a lot. Like that was kind of like he was just programmed to yell everything. But yeah, I thought the relation was better. It kind of, if you think of that phrase, your worst enemy is also your best friend. It fits these two characters perfectly.
Nice, yeah, and that's true.
I mean, he's a general though, so I mean, you gotta have a loud voice, I guess.
You gotta have a little volume.
I will find him.
All right, guys. So we've already established the new aesthetic. We've already established Krypton, and then we're getting the ship. It's come through across the galaxy, and then all of a sudden it crashes, and wham! We've run into the deadliest catch. And I think right off the bat too, it's like I just was not expecting to see Clark doing that stuff, and it's almost like in the first Superman movie, he was a young kid, and then all of a sudden you see that glass face turning from Jor-El, and then he's fully grown Superman in the suit flying off. So him actually soul searching, and again, we're getting to know the new Clark and who he is. I like that. I enjoyed it. And what do we see? First thing that we're seeing is You know, he's kind of being unsuspecting. He's kind of being low key. You know, he doesn't know. So, I mean, this could be like the new version of being bumbling, being a little ignorant because he's so powerful. He doesn't realize that a regular guy would have gotten crushed by a freaking crate falling. So, someone actually runs and pushes him out of the way and like gives him shit for it. First of all, how the hell did that guy even push him out of the way?
I thought that, and I was like, does he let him do it? Does he know what's happening and he lets him do it?
In that millisecond, he probably realized, like, wait a minute, I should probably go with him. Like, you know, because I mean, as dense as that fucker is, you know, that guy would have like basically.
Well, you see a couple scenes later where that dude tries to shove him.
Exactly
Yeah,
right.
he doesn't move.
Right. So he saves people from an oil rig. I thought that was a badass scene. Like, you know, they're looking at the oil rigs on fire. Greenhorn, fetch me my binoculars. Greenhorn, and then he's like already like halfway up the damn thing, crawling like a freaking gargoyle, and then he tears open the door, bare chested, freaking gruff looking, with fire all over, and I'm like, oh shit.
Did anyone think he looked like Wolverine?
A little
right?
bit, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Little bit. Yeah. Just a tiny bit.
He's just too tall.
Right? Oh man. I don't think we're ever gonna get a size accurate Wolverine, but we probably shouldn't, because it would have to be Danny DeVito at that point.
Danny DeVito.
What would you say, Devin?
Taron Egerton.
Maybe, but I don't know.
Is he short?
He's fairly
5'9".
5'9".
Yeah.
Camera tricks will make, you know.
True. I mean, they gave James Marsden platform shoes and had him stand on a crate a couple times with Hugh Jackman, because he's shorter than Hugh. Yeah.
Yeah, he's only like what, 5'10"?
I think maybe he might be
5'9".
5'10". Like Hugh's like 6'1", 6'2" or whatever, right?
Yeah, 6'2".
Yeah. That happens, and then we're seeing the sheer power of this Superman. He's holding up like a literal freaking huge beam trying to come down as all the fire and stuff's raging. And then we're getting flashbacks, which I'm all here for, you know. X-ray scene mixed with a little bit of heat vision. And did anyone else pick on the undertones that this is kind of like sensory overload? It almost like reminded me of like kids with autism or on the spectrum, like they might kind of go through that or whatever. And I felt like, oh, like that's a small detail that people might be able to relate to almost, you know. His superpowers manifesting kind of made him very sensitive to everything. Like he alludes to, he had to work on honing his senses. And I'm like, that's a cool little thing right there.
So I liked that scene with Martha. I really like that early flashback, that first one we see. The way that they show his X-ray vision, I think, is really, really interesting. My main problem, and really the only problem I had with that first flashback, and it's something that will progress throughout the movie, is I really don't like the score. Like, you look back and the score on that, the piano, it comes off very melodramatic, and that's this tone that you get for the scene that you're watching at that point. So this really, I think, well written scene between Martha and Clark just comes off for me as like a CW, not good example of CW, like the bad example of a CW show.
Okay, I never thought about that, and I love the score, but I don't in this one. I don't like it.
Well,
to the credit though, Hans Zimmer said he was done after The Dark Knight Rises, and here he is back, getting that money doing Superman.
For me, the original John Williams score is so good that your score needs to pay homage to that a little bit in some way.
So absolutely, it is timeless. It is great, but we're recontextualizing, so that's
sure. But
it's all going to go.
You could still do that while still creating a heroic feel for the hero. And his overall theme is good, but the score that you hear throughout the movie and throughout the scenes of just them talking, I mean, at least it's not Zack Snyder needle drops every 10 minutes like we get in a lot of other movies that people hate.
I guess.
But the score, I don't think it held up any of the scenes that it was in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I'll save the score stuff for later. I was gonna talk about like the whole like school scene and the X-ray vision scene. I mean, for me, I liked it because, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, he was a baby, they found him, and he's, you know, probably like 4 or 5 years. I don't know, I'm not sure. He's probably like 6 or 7 years old. And seeing that as a kid, you're gonna freak out. You know what I mean? So it made sense. It was obviously scary to him to see, like, I don't know what the hell's going on with me right now. And you know, and obviously with like him hearing everyone and then seeing through their bodies with X-ray, and then, you know, being locked in the closet. I thought that was like a great scene in my opinion, and I thought it worked. And I'll leave it at this when it comes to the score. I spoiler warning, but I enjoyed it. I like the score a lot. But I'll just leave it at that. We'll get to it when we get to it.
The bus scene,
that was amazing.
That was pretty cool, and I like that actor who they got to play him as a teen. I think that kid was great, and
he looks just like Henry. That's his twin.
Eyes too, man. The kid had such piercing eyes too. I'm like, damn, this guy is this guy was perfectly cast right here. Like a great in between ground for that. As a result of that scene though too, and I know I put it like a little. We're kind of addressing complaints in real time that pertain to certain things, and then at the end we might address some other complaints that people mentioned. But people were so up in arms about Jonathan saying, we talked about this, you're not supposed to do this, and then he's like, what was I supposed to do, just let them die? And he's like, I don't know, maybe, because you can tell he has no idea what the hell he's doing as a parent of a god, essentially. I don't know if I wouldn't have said the same thing personally as Jonathan Kent. But I don't know. What is your guys' take on that?
I didn't like his Jonathan Kent. I liked some scenes, and I did not like other scenes. Yeah, I know. I don't like that take from a Jonathan Kent. For me, I think back to Bo Duke in Smallville. That's my Jonathan Kent. And he wanted Clark. He was conservative about Clark's powers, but he always wanted Clark to do the right thing. And I think that's something that's very, very important for Superman to have in his repertoire of morality, is to always have the need to do the right thing. So when someone's in danger, it's the great responsibility, or great power, great responsibility conversation. When someone's in danger, Superman has a moral obligation to save them.
So I think you're right. There is that whole Jonathan Kent side of the moral obligation and everything. I don't see that he's not moral. He does feel like there's certain things that you should do, and even when he talks about because I'm breaking the confines of this movie. I'm going into Batman v Superman, but when he's talking to Clark in that little pseudo thing in the mountain where he's talking about we made sure that the Kent farm wasn't flooded, but then all that water went upstream to somebody else. So I think no matter what you do, there's always going to be some repercussion. And I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but it's like he basically, I think he wants to make sure that he chooses his moments carefully. I don't know. And again, later, obviously we'll talk about it more, and I'm sure you're probably gonna have a bone to pick with him on that, the scene that comes up after with all that stuff. But I get it. I understand. I didn't mind it because, again, in this modern age, in this age of xenophobia, in this age of oh my god, what are they going to do to my son if they find out that he's a freak or he has the ability to do this? That's really what is driving him and motivating him at that point. He's like, no, I don't want that.
I think that definitely comes through, their worry for him. That definitely comes through really well, both Diane Lane and Kevin Costner. Jeez. Yep. Wow, that was so right.
Dances with Wolves. Just say Dances with Wolves next time.
That part of the dynamic, the family dynamic, definitely comes across. But I'm very picky about Jonathan Kent. He needs to be a very strong moral person that hammers his morals into Clark.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I thought he was a great Jonathan Kent. I think, especially with that scene, I think again, he's a father of a child that's basically an alien. He doesn't know what. I mean, obviously, I think they talked about it in the car scene where we're gonna probably talk about at one point where Clark is right at some points, but I think for him, he just feels like Clark wasn't ready yet. He's not ready yet, and I think that's probably why he's obviously he doesn't want the kid to die, but he doesn't want anyone to know because Clark's not ready yet. I mean, to come out like that as a god, who knows what's gonna happen? Who knows what they're gonna do with him? Who knows what's gonna happen to him? And I think he was just thinking about his son at the end of the day. And obviously, saving a life is great, but also too, it's we kind of give and take. If this happens, and it gets out, word gets out. I mean, what are they gonna do to you? And obviously, I'm not a father, but it's what would you do in that instance? What would you say? It's probably a father thinking about his son.
I also didn't like Jonathan Kent in this movie. You're gonna let the kids die? That's horrible to even say or even think about. But I agree with Ricardo. Like here, like I feel like yeah, for now, like save your powers, like, but yeah, you're not ready yet. Wait till you're like, I don't know what, 20, 25, and then you can handle the responsibility. That if you look at it that way, I can understand. But I really didn't like Jonathan Kent. But also, another thing to really consider, I don't know if you guys noticed this, is Clark has, or Superman Clark has two fathers, right? He has Jonathan Kent and he has Jor-El. In this movie, Jonathan Kent was like, no, don't help people, hide yourself, keep yourself a secret. Where Jor-El was like, you could save everyone. You could be the hero, right? Did you guys notice that this was a complete opposite of the Christopher Reeves roles, where Marlon Brando was like, hide yourself, don't tell people who you are, where Jonathan Kent, I don't know the actor's name right now, but he was like, yeah, hide your powers, but like, like, I'm not telling you to like not save people. So like I just find it interesting that the Christopher Reeve Superman and the Henry Cavill Superman, their father figures are an exact opposite of each other.
Mm-hmm.
I never noticed that, but that's
I
a really
didn't
good
either,
point.
but that is a great point that you bring up, Cliva. So that is very interesting, and I mean you're right, and like like you said, if you see it from that angle, you can understand what he was talking about. I think that this really informs us on what Jonathan's relationship with his father, though. I think that his father was probably very stern, didn't know how to talk to his boys or whatever, maybe, and in my own head at least, the way he's treating his son, he didn't, because the Kents couldn't have their own kids, is how it's been and how it's been in the continuity and everything. So we're going to work off of that basis. He doesn't know how they couldn't have kids. So the kid that they could adopt, not very legal in that sense, he's like trying his hardest to protect, but also he has no idea how to raise him at every step of his life. So he's hitting puberty, and to the point that is being made, I don't think he doesn't want him to help. I think part of it is too is that he's worried that he might be too powerful. Like maybe he does something and then something bad happens or whatever. And then what happens if that falls on him too? Then it falls on Jonathan's conscience too. I mean, that's kind of like an unspoken thing that I've kind of thought was always implied. But even later on,
has happened before, where like Clark would sneeze and like blow out a barn door, or like, I know in Smallville he played football and accidentally hurt somebody. So like, yeah, that happens, and like that's also like, like Joe, I don't know, you could be stronger than I am and you could probably like crush me. Maybe you like that, but like people are bigger than other people.
Yeah.
But like accidents happen, I understand.
I really enjoyed Kevin's performance. I thought it was a good modern take on what was given to him. I think in the contextualization of that particular piece of dialogue where he says maybe, I think it's definitely kind of like definitely being overprotective and trying to figure out how to be a parent in this situation is definitely new for him, and especially with the whole adoption process and stuff like that. I just think it's definitely a lot to consider with what's going on, and I think that if that was a real situation, it would be. I don't think it would be a very direct answer. It definitely would be multi-layered in terms of how you present it to your kid, how you try to put them in the best situation for that time being. I think it's definitely something that would be considered, in all honesty, I think.
And the thing we're forgetting is that's part A to a part B, where he shows the ship and he says, you can't show yourself to the, like, you have to hide your powers, son. You didn't come from this earth. He's like, well, can I just go on pretending that I'm your son? And he's like, you are my son. That right there. Right. That's right. Like, because again, he says maybe, but he instantly regrets saying that as soon as it leaves his mouth, is what I got out of it. Like maybe you should have let them die. No, that's not right to say. But at the end of that scene, it's like, you are my son. That's the culmination. Moving on. Bar trucker scene real quick, as he's on the run and seeing the Canadian army talking about this whole ship and stuff. The douchebag in the truck. Tell me that didn't remind you of the guy in the diner in the second movie.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Right. And the thing of it is that people got up in arms about that because Superman's not supposed to be petty. He's not supposed to be. I'm like, oh, well, first of all, the dude was grabbing up on old girl like he was going to do something. That's not cool. Second of all, he's a dickhead. And third of all, if you're talking about Superman being petty, isn't it pettier to get your powers back, go back to the diner, and then mess up the guy that fucked you up?
Oh, God!
But I had no problem with Superman wanting to get back at somebody like that. Because again, he's just still also trying to figure out what Superman means and what that's supposed to be. So he has no idea that it's going to eventually lead to that Boy Scout image, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I just want to know, how is he going to claim that for his insurance? What do you
Right.
What do you say that was? Like,
yeah, it's what I said. There's a bunch of freaking telephone poles to my truck. God damn it!
It was a weather balloon.
Or just say it's a tornado. Say it's a tornado.
Right.
That's the only thing you can get away with, I think, is tornado.
Exactly.
It's got to be it.
Yeah.
So now we move on to enter Lois Lane. But yeah, so we're getting in there, and I see, this is what sold me on her being Lois Lane. She's coming in a day early. They didn't expect her until the day after. She's coming in early so that way she can catch them in the act of whatever they're doing. There's this thing under the ice. Turns out it's a Kryptonian ship. Clark uses his X-ray vision, goes all in, and after he's done, I thought this was a fun detail. His eyes kind of hurt from doing that, so he's like when he comes through. I thought that was a kind of a fine detail too, and I just love the way his laser vision happens. Like his eyes get all veiny and stuff, and he just like gets, you know, kind of like Cyclops almost, but more destructive maybe. So that happens. He puts the key for his ship into it, and Jor-El's AI comes through, and it's like a subtle, like quick little shot here. The first time I saw it, I'm like, who the hell's that? You know, and then you see the dead body inside of one of the like casket things or chambers.
Yeah, one of the scout ships.
Lois comes on because she's that person. She's that stupid. She's trying to take pictures, and then she gets attacked by the machine. Clark saves her, leaves her, you know, out in the cold or whatever, because that's smart. She could have gotten hypothermia, man. What's the matter with you? And then the ship basically flies off, and that's where we get our little exposition dump, because Jor-El's AI comes through. And before we talk about this, was it too much to ask that maybe he could have included Lara as an AI? Isn't that kind of messed up? Like his father's the only one that got that.
Maybe it's only the male genetic sequence that's kept as an AI on those family thumb drive things.
Canceled. Sexist.
That was a hypothesis, not a.
Yeah, well, I mean,
maybe he only had that coded to him and not Laura.
Yeah, I still think that's kind of messed up though. I'm like,
maybe she was in labor at the time and she couldn't record it.
Or maybe he's like, come on, baby, record for your son. Do something. No, I don't want to do that shit. I don't look good, man.
Camera shy. Laura exactly. Camera shy.
Right.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, maybe he could have done that, but I think it's just obviously for purposes of a movie. I think you want to compare and contrast both fathers.
Yeah.
You know, they're not really comparing and contrasting.
Yeah.
You know, Martha can't, you know, even though she's primarily more in the movie than Laura L, but like,
yeah.
I think it makes more sense because you can kind of compare and contrast, and obviously you want someone to go back and forth with Clark, and just compare the differences between Jonathan Kent and Jor-El.
Yep.
And so it makes sense that way.
But the ship, did anyone think this was like an inbreeding ship or a cloning ship? Like they had vessels with people in them, with bodies in them. Did anyone like think that?
Oh, do you mean so they would take the DNA from the people in the pods and then it would go into the birthing chamber?
This is how they would create their civilization, how they would make their citizens. Did anyone get that?
I never thought about that, but you're right, because that did have a birthing chamber and stuff. I wonder. Well, I mean, obviously they didn't explain how it worked technically for the birthing, but that probably is what it might.
Because I took this ship as this is a ship going to another planet. Well, when you go to another planet, you're going to need people to populate it. So, and we already discussed that they have no natural birth. So the way they make people is artificially. Why not do this on this ship? It crash landed on this planet. What, like, didn't they say like 20,000 years ago or something like that? It crash landed on this ship, frozen to the ice, and then eventually the people just died. You know, because they couldn't get out of the ice. They were trapped in there. So I think planet Earth was going to be populated by Kryptonians eventually.
To your point, I think that there's definitely shades of that in it, because I mean the ship has a suit generator, as we find out,
Right.
With the armors, with different color variations of the suits, and the different suits with the different crests that they probably make instantly once the key is put in or whatever it is. But there's the birthing chamber. There is probably the pods where people sleep, and then there is all the other stuff attached. We only saw parts of the ship, but this ship is like immense and massive for sure. So
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the scenes were fine, but I really think that this was a ship that was coming to Earth 20,000 years ago. I don't know how long they said,
yeah,
but like it was going to be populated by Kryptonians
yeah,
eventually. And then for whatever reason, they Captain America it and they got frozen in the ice for whatever reason.
yeah. They probably that's probably around the time that they probably abandoned the explorations. Maybe.
Maybe.
Is my best guess. But jumping on the suit aspect, how about that suit, man? I'd like that suit a lot. I love it.
I do like it. I just think that in some lighting, the color scheme is a little, or the tone of it is a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes it's a little too dark on screen.
I think that's the color grading part, which we're gonna get to at some point too. But as far as like the chainmail look, I mean, I know his mom didn't make his suit this time around, but I think that's kind of cool.
Dad made it.
Well, yeah, right. His dad ended up making it. The circle belt buckle. There's no trousers, which I thought was a cool modern update. And the S is the old school S, like after not not when it was a triangle, but like a couple things after when it was kind of that thin and then it got thicker and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that shield. I like that shield was a throwback, and I really enjoyed it.
So I like the armored aesthetic through it. I just wish it was a little bit more bright, but that's an issue that we'll go into here.
Exactly. And we can see that it can be nice and bright, as in some dead end cameo scenes from movies. And this leads into the first flight, which you're wrong, Zach. The score on this scene was amazing.
Yeah,
you're wrong.
His personal themes are great.
Okay.
It's whenever the score has piano in it. For one of the dramatic scenes, it comes off.
Doom.
Yeah, it's
doom.
like in Top Gun, like the but except Top Gun it fits. Here it's not 1985.
So what you're saying is
so
Hans Zimmer did a slowed down Top Gun. Doom 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 doom.
No, I'm not saying he did that. He's more creative than that, but.
Imagine that it just breaks
land
off
with me. It didn't land with me.
He's starting to fly and he breaks off into danger zone.
That would be amazing. I'd see that movie 10 times out of 10. What are you talking about? Why are you joking about that? No, his theme is great. The Henry Cavill Superman theme, just that is amazing. I do like that, and when paired with the imagery of that first flight scene, it is really good.
For me, I think the score. I think the score is amazing. I think having that little like that piano, the tune. I think for me, it kind of feels like I'm at home in a sense, like with him and his mother. I feel like it's like you feel you're at home, you feel you're safe.
It's kind of like a warm hug almost.
Right, and I think they kind of did that. Well, I don't want to compare the movies, but I feel like they kind of did that a little bit with the Batman, and he had that one score that you can use in different variations. You know what I mean? I think that's what they're kind of going for.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like having that subtle piano, I feel like it just depending on how you're going to use it in a dramatic tone, I think it works.
This was probably actually my favorite scene of the movie, like the whole movie. Because like I love the way he takes off, like he crouches down and you can see like the ripples in like the air or on the. It's very similar to how Neo took off in the Matrix. He's doing the Superman thing, so it's very similar to that. But like what I really loved about it is it calls back to the original Superman in the comics. Do you remember like Superman didn't fly originally in the comips?
He over buildings.
He leaped over buildings at a single bound. So that's what he did in this. He jumped up, and I don't know. He jumped like what 4 or 5 times before he actually started to fly. I really like that. So like it was kind of like Ang Lee's Hulk, right? Like he was so powerful, he just jumped and jumped and jumped, and then eventually he flew. And when he flew, the expression on his face was just something of pure joy. Like you're like, oh my God, I am flying right now. Even I can't explain this. Jarrell can't explain this, but I am physically flying right now. And this is joyful. I'm actually enjoying my powers. Where like in past scenes, like, yeah, I gotta hold up this thing so I can rescue these people. Yeah, I gotta hold up this bus so the kids can get up. But like, he wasn't expressive in those scenes. This is the only scene in the entire movie, I think, where he actually enjoyed being super. And you can see it right there on his face. He's laughing. He's just enjoying himself.
It's almost as if it's his time to shine. He's ready now. Is what I got out of it too. He's able to finally ascend to that level where now he can actually feel free in his own skin, maybe too, metaphorically.
If you notice during the flying sequence, you notice that if you got a really good ear, you can hear the flying effects from the old George Reeves Superman series.
Oh, I didn't
Really?
know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Like when he's taking off, you can hear it. So that's definitely something that was added there in post. But yeah, I really do like that scene. I had the pleasure of watching it in IMAX. So you really got to be immersed in that scene with the effects and the sound design and all of that, the sound mixing. So I just thought it was really pleasing to the ear, pleasing to the eye to really see like a new Superman in this setting, getting to really figure himself out for the first time. That was really neat to see.
All right. So shortly after that flight scene, we see Lois. She just kind of goes through everything. She discovers Clark's identity. She ends up tracking him down and finding him at Jonathan Kent's grave. And that's when we end up seeing another like controversial thing where we actually see Jonathan Kent's death. And think of it as that they're stuck on a highway. He's having an argument with Clark about what he's supposed to be doing in life and what he wants to do. Oh, farming isn't good enough for you. Well, your family's farmers, not mine. I don't even know why I'm talking to you about this. You're not even my father. And then even the mother's like, whoa, oh, shut up, dude. Like that's some like really callous shit right there. So that happens. The tornado's coming. They help to evacuate everybody. And of course, instead of sending Clark, Jonathan has to be a dumbass, which I will submit, and go and try and save the dog himself. And then as the tornado is coming, he's like this. Now, here's my question to you, because it is a boneheaded move, but we've already established that he's very dedicated and he will rather sacrifice himself than have his son be revealed. Basically how he does, because his son something bad could happen to his son. Do you think it was more impactful that he sacrificed himself in his head, or that it was a more impactful thing in the first Superman film where his father just basically dropped from a heart attack? You have all this power, you can't stop something, or you have all this power, but you were told not to act.
I think it's more impactful if he can't stop it. Like there's nothing he can do about it.
Right.
Especially in that movie where it then leads to the end with Lois. You know, I think there's a direct correlation from him experiencing what happened with Jonathan in that movie to him doing what he does in the end to save Lois, to not have to go through that pain again, you know? But as far as the way they do it in this one, I get it. Like, I think it looks really cool, the way that they actually have the whole situation play out. But it doesn't make sense to me why it couldn't have been Clark to do it. Because if you remember in that scene, it's not him going to get the dog, it's him then getting stuck and his leg is stuck and caught, and Clark could have got the dog, got back, and nothing would have, you know what I mean? Like, I think it would have just been, it would make more sense to send the guy that has powers to go get the dog and come back, where he could still make it believable that he's, you know, rushing. You know what I mean? I didn't buy that it had to be Jonathan. So
in my mind, I see Clark going to get the dog. I see him not moving fast enough, and then he's going to zoom out, or he lets the tornado overtake him. And at which point, when they find him, how the hell aren't you dead, Clark? We saw you getting swept away, even though you didn't. As far as this goes, I think you're right. I think that there is definitely an impact of, you have all this power, you can't do anything to stop it. But just like that informs the rest of that movie, I think that informs the rest of Clark's motives in this movie, is like, he can't just stand by again and let someone get hurt. The person that he was, someone that he loved, not only someone he loved, but someone he really had it out with at that point in time, he ended it on like the worst fucking terms. So that informs him not having to stay out of things, not having to keep his nose out of stuff. He's always going to save somebody. It's always going to come down to, I'm going to save you. I don't care what it is now. You're not going to tell me not to save you anymore. So I think in that respect, it definitely informs him on that end. But it is tough for me, because I feel an impact on both ways. but I mean, I totally see where people can think, hey, he's got all this power, he can't do it, is a bigger thing, like a more impactful event for sure.
For me, I felt like it didn't really work. I thought it was kind of like they needed that type of like, I want to say like I'm not like a MacGuffin, but they needed something obviously for Jonathan Kent to die, but also for Clark again to go on that journey of finding himself. And like again, with Jonathan, holding out his hand, I still felt like probably he just said, like they're not ready yet, you're not ready yet, and he was still kind of pressing on that moment until he found himself once he got to the ship and met Jor-El and everything like that, and basically became Superman. I thought it was kind of cheesy, like not obviously not cheesy in a bad way, but I thought it was like they could have done it like a little bit better, and they could have done it, maybe like a heart attack where he couldn't stop, he couldn't stop it, rather than him just kind of going back and forth. Like Smallville, if you watch Smallville, he can kind of go back and forth. He'd be the red blue blur type of thing, where like he's so fast that no one would have even recognized him getting the dog or saving his father. But maybe not saving his father, but getting the dog would have been easy. But I felt like it could have been done a little bit better.
Gotcha. All right.
That's something that didn't really work for me in that movie.
I don't even think, given what we know about that scene, that he would have to use a super speed at all for that. Jonathan didn't have to. You run at a normal pace, a human level pace, and then that's my problem with it. Really, is there's absolutely no reason why it couldn't have been Clark.
Yeah, but maybe because his dad would have been like, let's say if it wasn't that easy, he kind of ran at human pace, and the tornado was coming, and then after that, like something happened, because you'll have a different type of scenarios where he may have to use his powers. So he's like, what, instead of having that situation, I'll go get the dog.
Well, again, what happened to Jonathan was his foot got caught. Would that have happened to Clark?
It might have. It might have.
But I mean, he could have got out of it.
Yeah, he would have gotten out of it. But then, as the tornado was coming and scooping him up, or people thinking, because there was a ton of people too under that overpass and stuff too. It's like a whole highway stretch. Everyone was trying to get the hell out of Dodge when that was happening. So it wasn't just close people in Smallville. It was like people from all of like Kansas probably trying to get around. And I think that probably, I don't know, like again, Clark should have gone and got the dog, but since he wasn't the one to get the dog, John's like, no, we're not playing this game. You got to stay there because we don't want all these people knowing what you're doing, because someone's going to say something to somebody or whatever. But again, it's like speed could have been a factor, could have been a blur. So Lois drops the story because she feels for Clark and she's going gaga over him probably because he's not human. So yeah, he comes back home, creepy message from beyond.
My name is General Zod.
It was so creepy. From the tone shift, really impactful. It felt like a horror movie in that one little scene.
Yeah.
The way that the tension was just constantly being twisted.
So that happens. Lois gets detained by the government. Clark speaks to a priest, which showed some vulnerability in my eyes, which I touched him on before, which I kind of liked. They really lay down the Jesus figure stuff in this, which they always do in this type of story with Superman.
Really did, yeah.
But having Jesus's face right there and then having him come out of the ship with the cross kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did you also notice that the Jesus in the stained glass window had a red cape?
Yeah. Right behind him in that scene.
The close-up shot in the church with the stained glass right behind him, and it's just perfectly.
That's what I was talking about. So he decides to turn himself in, and in typical Superman fashion, he lets them cuff him, which Lois points out. I'm like, you can't get more Superman than that. But then when they're talking about, oh, this is a symbol of hope and stuff, he breaks it through. He's like, let's put all our cards on the table, gentlemen. You don't own me, and you never will. So what do you expect us to do, Superman? So turn themselves in, but then, hey, we're going to take Lois too onto the ship because reasons. Did they even know about her? Like, why would they want her?
Well, because that one reporter gave her name out, saying that she knows who he is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
right?
but
So
are the Kryptonians watching TV? Is what I'm saying. The Kryptonians wanted her. Is what I meant. That's what I meant. So that's
They
weird.
wanted her to accompany her too. So
yeah.
Grams?
Say it again, Cliva.
Weren't they monitoring Earth's
monitoring?
I thought they were.
I didn't know that if they were monitoring like the TV stuff and the airwaves.
I thought they were monitoring everything, like radio waves, TV waves, like everything. Like,
gotcha.
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I caught.
Well, they probably were. I might have missed that. And then we get like a pretty good tease on the kryptonite, like a tease on the kryptonite tip, because he's not used to the atmosphere. He passes out and stuff, and he's like coughing up blood. I thought that was really well done. The dream scene, the foundation has to be built on something. Oh my god, that was
amazing.
Awesome.
That was amazing.
So after that happens, they escape from the ship, and then rumble in Smallville, baby. Rumble in Smallville. Superman went full Bobby Boucher for his mama.
Yep.
Where is the codex?
And then he throws him into like how many silos, and then right into like freaking the
right
heart of
through the
Smallville.
7-Eleven.
Right? Product placement, baby.
7-Eleven.
Sears,
7-Eleven, IHOP.
Okay.
Yep.
If there's one thing that I love about this is, again, we're seeing Superman fight on the level. What we talked about in the Superman Returns, he did not have a lot of action where he was fighting somebody on his level. This gave us that on steroids, and I love it. Side note, this is kind of like, are they Kryptonians or are they Super Saiyans? Or like, I feel like Zack Snyder's style would lend itself to that type of fighting. Just saying. And especially with how Feora was like,
oh man, that scene when she messed up the military, like just like that.
Like, holy shit.
Just
and then
ran
later,
through him. It's like, damn.
We'll get into it, but the hummingbird fight that they do, where they're just going through the city, just again, we'll get into it later, but that's just awesome.
Oh my god, man. I mean, so Zod was taken by surprise, and then he ends up going to the Kryptonian ship, and then he actually takes off his mask purposely because he wants to get used to the atmosphere. And at that moment where it's like, boom, and he opens his eyes, I'm like, okay, that's dangerous right there. That's dangerous. Terraforming starts to happen. Superman has to go off and fight that Brainiac looking machine that's not Brainiac.
So that's what I was gonna say. I don't think that would have looked awesome if Brainiac was the main villain.
See, I feel like they were gonna go that direction, but again, they wanted to rush.
Yeah,
the
they even teased like the 3 dots that he got on his head,
and then with the tentacles coming out, like I just thought Brainiac, like I feel like they should have kept that in their pocket for if they ever did a Brainiac.
And that's the thing, they probably were, but we want to do Batman versus Superman, Zakk.
Yeah, the studio pushed that on him.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yep. Because they wanted to do the Marvel.
Even during Man of Steel, that was happening.
Well, no, after Man of Steel. Right, because I think what I'm guessing is he wanted to do a natural progression. He wanted to do Man of Steel 2, and probably what it was is they could have alluded that thing was probably a Brainiac technology, all that other stuff, maybe. I mean, that Helix, all those hovering things were all the same kind of material and technology, and all the exposition with all the different icons that Jor-El showed him and stuff about the history. Maybe that could have been something like a virus or something. I don't know. We can write better movies than some of the people that are writing these movies. I'm just saying. Terraforming happens, so you got that happening.
Dumb. Speak for yourself.
He's fighting that little Brainiac looking tentacle machine while in Metropolis they're trying to do their little Forest Moon of Endor Death Star run, because it's held by a shield or protected by some type of thing going on, because that's the thing that's protecting it, I guess. Everything's getting leveled. Everything's getting destroyed. Crazy pandemonium. Holy shit, what the hell is this? Which people complain about, but I'm like, dude,
an alien invasion.
It's an alien invasion, and these people are like gods. What do you think's going to happen? Just because no one was shown being killed or in terror in the Avengers doesn't mean that type of shit wasn't happening. And I will submit, after Man of Steel is when Marvel really got serious about the collateral damage shit, because they showed more of it in Avengers 2. They showed it in Captain America 3. They showed all that destruction and stuff in the subsequent movies after that, because I think for a little bit, DC was getting shitted on, but Marvel was literally taking a play or two out of DC's books from those movies. I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I think that's what it sounds like to me. I think it was too coincidental. It's almost like, they love our movies, they hate yours, so we're going to do what you do, and we're going to make it look better.
Oh, I think what that is Zack Snyder has such a stylistic approach that just really doesn't rub a lot of people the right way. And then when you pair that with the hyper violence, it turns some people off in that sense. It's not as I guess in the background as it is in the Marvel stuff when it's right there because that's the shot,
Yeah. I brought it up, and I had an argument with somebody, and then I said that, and they're like, their brain just froze. They're like, wait a minute, Avengers did have stuff like this happen, so that means people died. I'm like, duh. Like, the only difference is that Man of Steel showed you people like getting to that point, which they did it 10 times more in Batman v Superman. But I digress. And so after Zod does that, he basically takes over the ship, and I love the scene where he actually talks to the AI of Jor-El. He's like, "This is madness, Zod. This is genocide," and I am arguing its merits with a dead man. I was like, "Holy shit!" That
was cold.
That's great dialogue, though. Tell me, you have his personality and his memories. Do you have his feelings? I will build the new world of Krypton on your son's bones. Like, and then he just slams the key and basically erases the AI. I'm like, that's some of the coldest shit I've ever seen. Again, Michael Shannon is a great Zod for this movie, in my opinion. And I wonder if he's going to be
excited to see him in the Flash.
I wonder if he's going to be that same level in the Flash too. Exactly.
I hope so.
All right. So everything's going on. Superman's getting smogged the fuck out. Can't breathe. Finally, powers on through. Yay! And then he has to reach out to the sun and get his rays.
It's on brand. I mean, that's what he does. He's just
true.
Sundays all the time.
Our minds just went to a bad place. They finally managed to get the ship on its path to the Kryptonian ship. They have to do the whole turning thing. Feora starts coming in and fucking shit up. And then the Kryptonian ship comes out and starts firing on like the fighter jets and stuff. And I thought that this was another awesome scene. And it's like one turn deserves another. Superman comes through and starts lasering the shit out of it. If you destroy the ship, you destroy Krypton. Krypton had its chance. Ah!
It is a little against Superman though, because in the comics he very much preserves Krypton's memory through his archives and his.
Well, there's still probably like that shrunken city somewhere.
Yeah, Kandor.
Which we'll never learn about in this universe.
Not in this one, but James Gunn would do something silly like that.
Oh god. And he's gonna make them all mini and be like, it's a big guy trying to kill us. So all that stuff happens. They send the ship back to the Phantom Zone. Krypton had its chance, fantastic. And then in the dust and the rubble, you're just seeing Zod. Oh my! Like I thought the movie was done after the ship crashed and after they got it into the Phantom Zone. I thought it was done. It was a false ending. But then all of a sudden they come out with this. If you want like a monologue or like the moment where shit's about to hit the fan, it's him holding the dust that's falling out of his hand.
I exist only to protect Krypton, and now I have no people.
That's what you took from me. And then he just, like a mad dog, he just starts freaking leaping at Superman and stuff, and they just go pound for pound in the sky, in the stratosphere, in the streets, in the train station, all these buildings getting run out and run down and stuff like that. Like, holy shit. And this is the fight I never knew I needed in a Superman movie. That's how I felt about it.
This one destroys the Zod fight in the city in Superman 2. It's so visceral, just the entire fight and the way that it's shot and how it takes you through every action. Granted, it's fast, but you're keeping up with it.
Yeah, it's exhilarating. It's like it's a whole new climax. And the thing of it is that again, the dialogue, the way that he's dissing him, he's talking down to him. He's like, I was born to be a soldier, to hone my senses. Where did you learn how to do yours? A farm? Yeah. And the thing is we're getting teases for LexCorp, we're getting teases for Wayne Tech, so all that stuff's there.
Yeah,
we get to the train station, and again, this is a big point of contention. Gets him in a headlock. He's lasering. He's like, if you love these people so much, then you can mourn for them. The laser is going into the family that's basically getting cornered. Everyone says, "Oh, he could have done this. He could have done that." I'm like, I'm sorry. At that point, I don't think he's doing anything that can stop Zod from doing any of that stuff. He's not able to hold his face this way. If he tries to shoot up in the sky, Zod's gonna come out and like literally like punch him down and like kill like 20 people running around, or like a few hundred people right now. He had to snap his neck. I'm sorry, he had to do it. And that family,
Zod literally says, either I kill you or either you die or I do.
Yeah.
Right. So
the only way this ends is one of us has to die.
Yeah.
And he's like begging him to stop.
Right. And also too, I was gonna say, like, even I think we begged him to stop. He was like, never. He said never. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but like, and I know a lot of people have issues with that because Superman doesn't kill. Same thing with Batman, he doesn't kill. But like, he had
every movie Batman, but George Clooney's killed. Right. I hate that argument.
True.
Yeah. And Superman's killed. Superman literally killed Zod in the second Superman movie. He breaks his hand first of all, and then he just tosses him across the room, and then he falls. Like, and then Non kills himself by accident, and then Lois Lane kills Ursa. I'm sorry, but Superman has killed, and he will kill again. He's that. He's a mean man. No, but the difference is that he had remorse when he did that too.
There's been times in the comics too where he's had to choose that. He's had to make that choice against one of his enemies. So he has to save innocence. He doesn't have to necessarily save evil. And Superman is able to recognize what's evil and what can be saved. You know, like he's done that before. It's not just the Boy Scout image of what we see, you know, because of the Christopher Reeve imagery. He's a lot more than that as a character. I've always thought, and I think it's kind of discredits him to say that he can't kill when it's justified. You know, he has to save everybody he can, but when it's just, not everyone can be saved. I think he recognizes that, unlike Batman with the Joker.
Yeah, well, and the thing is that everyone complained about this movie being too violent, too this and that. I'm like, we're in a post 9/11 world, guys. I'm sorry to bring it up, but hey, we've seen buildings crumble like this. And if it's God's going like that, if you're going to make it more believable and grounded, stuff like this would happen. This type of destruction was going to happen. Oh, it's darker, it's this or that. Okay, if that's your complaint, then why the hell, if a dark and gritty movie is not enjoyable, which I don't think that this was, I don't think that this was dark or gritty at all. Desaturated colors, sure, but how the hell is it that the Joker became the highest grossing comic book rated R movie, and that is like thrown into the woes and the depths of insanity and darkness and grittiness? You can't get darker and grittier than that, in my opinion.
But I just think people have that perspective of Superman. I mean, obviously you haven't read like, you know, the comics or any other iterations of them, but I think people just expect Superman to be like the nice guy. He's not like Batman. So, and you know, Batman's like dark, Superman's light. So, and honestly, I don't think this movie's dark. I think, like I said, we haven't seen Superman do that in a live action movie. And I think going back to Zod, I think again with him, like, you know, he basically lost his people. Like he can't go back. We can't go back and make more Kryptonian. So like him, you know, being pissed off and going after all the humans that Clark loves, there's a reason for that. You know, he was trying to save his race, and like you said too as well. Once he killed Zod, I mean, he felt remorse. He mourned him. He screamed because that's the last of his people. There's no one else. You know, so like it worked for me. It worked for me, and I thought, like, you know, seeing that on film was I think was a great scene, and it's something that like people probably didn't. I didn't expect that to happen, honestly, because usually you expect Superman to be like the nice guy and be like, no, like I'll put him, you know, in family zone or something like that.
Yeah, but then it's like, how the hell are you going to do that or whatever? How are you going to detain him and stuff, right? So
yeah, he wasn't gonna stop. He wasn't gonna stop
for sure. Like you said, he says that he's never stopped him.
Right.
And I think too, like with this being a story about him becoming Superman and progressing into him becoming that character, it was a really important moment for him to have to then know what it means to be Superman later. You know, you can clearly see that taking the life affects him a lot in that moment. I think Henry Cavill does an amazing job on that shot where he's just screaming. That really shows that how impactful that decision was for him, and how he'll respect it so much more when he has to make it again if he has to make it again in the future. You know, and I think that's what this movie does a good job of in terms of how he's becoming Superman. How I talked about that multi-movie arc that we see him go through, that I'm sure we'll talk about if we cover the other movies.
Yeah, and it would have been better realized and better paced if they hadn't interfered and wanted to move the timetable again, as kind of we discussed and Devin brought up.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. You guys sound like you really love this fight, but like after he got his flight powers, I was bored. Like, I'm sorry, like it was just like, this was when I was watching the fight and I'm like, okay, like nothing's happened, like buildings are getting destroyed, you know. I'll admit, like, this fight was very realistic. If you have two superpowered beings of their level, yes, the whole city, even the planet's gonna get destroyed. Nothing can stop these guys. But like, it was just destruction after destruction. It was like more destruction than a Michael Bay film. And it was just like, I was actually checking my watch. Like, I was looking at my phone, checking Facebook, and I'm like, nothing's happening. The only thing that like kind of like took me away from my phone or took me away from my watch was just like the conversations. You know, the monologue from Zod. Great. I agree with you guys. It was awesome. I liked it. I liked the scene where like he was like, I don't know, flexing and like his armor was popping off. I enjoy that. But just the destruction, it was just the same destruction over and over again. Again, very realistic, but it was just the same. What I find most interesting of this whole destruction stuff was actually the story of Perry White. I think the guy's name was Stephen and Jenny. I found their story way more interesting than the fight between Zod and Superman because these are people who are not powerful, who have to live through this tragedy, and who are surviving this tragedy. Like that scene where like Jenny was trapped underneath the rubble, like that reminded me so much of the Tom Holland Spider-Man when he was also trapped in the rubble. These people could easily give up. I could leave you underneath this rubble and save myself, but like no, like I'm going to do the human thing. I'm going to try to you know power my way through this. I'm going to try to get through this as best as I can. And this is why I've always liked, I guess I'm just going to say old school Superman, like especially like Superman Returns when he was lifting up that giant island. Like, yeah, he was lifting up this giant island, but he was also doing it while being struck by kryptonite. Kryptonite was going into his skin, but like he could easily just drop this island and just be like, okay, well, like this thing is really heavy, but like I'm going to persevere. I'm going to overcome my weakness, lift this island up, and triumph. Same thing with Jenny Olsen and Perry White, and I think the guy's name is Steven. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to get Jenny out of this rubble, and they did. They got like good job. That like to me that was more of a hero story than the fight between Zod and Superman.
I was gonna say that's like a great observation because also too like the humans just weren't staying like laying down, not doing anything. Like even the military got involved.
Not to get too far ahead too, but I think that exact point is why the scene in Batman vs Superman in the beginning where Ben Affleck Batfleck is running into that debris cloud is the most Batman scene that's ever been on camera, because you have this guy who's super vulnerable and human running into something that would kill every single one else in the world, but doing it because it's the right thing to do. But that's absolutely captured in this too, with Perry White and them banding together and deciding not to leave each other. That was a really, really good scene too. That's a good bring up.
Like if I could continue, like the reason like I love the Christopher Reeve Superman the movie is that scene where like Lois Lane dies. She gets crushed in that car, and Superman gets so angry, right, that he flies around the earth. Yes, flying around the earth is stupid and doesn't make sense on a scientific level, but like right there, that scream, and he like Henry Cavill kind of does that in this movie too, but that's a human scream. That's not a Kryptonian scream. That's not a superhero scream. That's just not a god scream. That's a human scream. So like I don't know, like maybe I just focus more on the human element of Superman, where you guys, no offense to you guys, but you guys seem to like focus on more of the super element of Superman.
So I think there's multiple aspects of the human element though, because like when you get into like Man of Steel again, or not Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman again, to jump into it, that's a very conflicted Superman of not knowing what the world wants him to be, right? So the best parts of Superman are when he's conflicted to me. I think it's overlooked that everyone wants him to be the Boy Scout in this pure beacon of morality, or this paragon of morality, when in some of the best stuff written about him, like All-Star Superman, the best stuff in that book isn't about him fighting or him having any of these powers. It's about him on a human level, right?
Correct.
Walking around, not flying, that type of stuff. So the conflicted Superman has always been the most interesting Superman to me, personally. Not that Christopher Reeve doesn't have that too. He definitely has that, I think, in spades. But I think that Snyder wanted to lean into that a lot more with what his take was.
I think, and I think for just looking at this film, the action and everything was a highlight for us because we hadn't seen the type of action in the Superman movie. So that's why we sound like we're focusing on it more too. And there were different human aspects that were in here, the humanistic aspects that we hadn't explored per se in the Christopher Reeve Supermans to a certain degree. So it kind of covered all bases. A lot more of the violence and the action is what this film is more known for, again, because it's Zack Snyder's Superman. It's him going toe to toe with a bunch of people that are like more powerful or just as powerful as him. So he's gonna get really physical with it. After that, we kind of skip ahead a little bit. Superman downs a drone in front of the general, and he tells him, he's like, I know you're trying to find where I hang my cape. You're not. So you're just gonna have to trust me or whatever. Like, and then he finally decides to go into the Daily Planet and stuff like that, get a job. And again, I like a lot of the dialogue in this. I liked a lot of the one-liners with a little bit of dialogue because he comes in. Obviously, he knows Lois. Lois knows him. They've got a thing already before he starts putting on the glasses. He's like, gotta pretend though. He's like, "Hello, Lois. Hi, Clark. Welcome to the planet." And then he just has that smile, or he's like, glad to be here. And it's like, finally, he's part of the world. Like, Superman is ushered into the world. They've welcomed him with open arms, although they kind of backtrack that in the next movie just because of the tones. But that's Man of Steel. Overall, do you think that the story has held up? Do you guys think that the story of Man of Steel has held up, or do you think it's kind of lost some of its gleam and its shine?
For me, I actually think when you recontextualize that, when you have the full piece now of what his arc is, now we're not getting any more, so that's all we have of his arc. I do see the threads of what they wanted to do, and I think after knowing the final product, I do still like Man of Steel. I still think overall it's a good Superman movie, despite what a lot of the complaints are for it. But you have to really get past the stylistic choices of Zack Snyder, and a lot of people can't. So I understand that.
Now, I was going to say that it still holds up for me. I kind of keep it to the point of just like, I leave it at Man of Steel and leave it at there. Obviously they have Batman vs Superman, Justice League, but like, I kind of leave it as a standalone movie, and I think the movie works. Obviously there's some things that don't work with it, but overall I think it's an enjoyable movie. I think it's something that we never seen before. And it, to me, just, I feel like Henry Cavill just, I feel like he should be going forward, should be Superman, but we know what happened with the whole controversy and everything.
I might have sound negative on this movie, but I actually did like this movie. Like, everything before the destruction or before he got like his super jump, I love the backstory. I love, but the destruction, like I said, I didn't really care for. That's fine. I'm a very old school Superman fan, so like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do enjoy this movie, but I'm probably only gonna watch this movie if I plan to do like a Batman, Superman, Justice League kind of like marathon watching.
Yep.
I would not watch this on my own. I'd rather watch the Christopher Reeve / Superman Returns, because that, to me, that's my Superman.
Yep.
But Henry Cavill, he's a great Superman. I'll give him that. So, but yeah, I'd rather just watch this when I'm doing a Justice League marathon or something.
Yeah, I love Man of Steel. I've seen it 3 times in the theater. Henry Cavill is definitely going to be missed as the last set of Krypton. He did a really good job, and I really appreciated what Zakk was trying to do with his vision in the beginning and what he was able to conclude for what he was tasked with doing. But overall, yeah, it's my favorite Superman film, and really does suck we're not going to see Henry anymore. I thought he was really good, so at least we got this, so it will never be taken away from us. We'll be able to enjoy it whenever we can, and we always have access to it, so that's good.
Absolutely. And you guys already know my take. I love this movie for all its negatives and its positives. I could watch this all day. I could also watch the old school Supermans, and I actually like Superman 1, 2, 3, and 4 for their own reasons, but it's all for us. It's all for me. We all get our tastes that we like. But yeah, I think that it still holds up, and I think that as we look forward and we see whatever comes out, I would be remiss to think that the new stuff for Superman will be as groundbreaking cinematic wise for Superman, personally, is my opinion, than what we got in Man of Steel at the time and all the stuff that we ended up getting. And yeah, I think I'll always have Henry Cavill as my Superman.